exclusive, first ever, valued up. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Valued Up podcast, where our conversations are all about adding value regardless of the topic. Here we are, episode 8, the Ocho. Yes, sir. Ocho Cinco.
Yes,
Not
sir.
there yet, but just the Ocho. Man, excited for today. Excited for this topic. Man, we're going to kill it today, man.
Yeah, well, it does something to you, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When we first came up with this topic, it was like, okay, I got to get in the lab for this one.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the type of energy that we brought, because we really want to bring that value today. But just everything that we're talking about is going to be gold. I truly believe that today.
Yeah, and so what we're going to be doing is basically giving advice to the 18-year-old version of ourselves. And this is something, and this is why I think it's so... I'm so excited, is because it's near and dear to my heart. We always have conversations of like, man, you know, I wish at that age I would have known X, Y, Z. And here we are, you know, a couple 30-year-olds and had a lot of life experience, business, work, relationships, so on and so forth. And there's so much that I just feel like the youth isn't getting nowadays, right? I believe father power is less and less now.
Yeah.
And this isn't a conversation towards or directed towards a specific male or female. It's just all encompassing.
Or age group, but it's just life experience.
Right. Yeah.
Eliminating the coulda, shoulda, wouldas in life. And what would if I could go back to my younger self, 18 years old, what would that playbook be?
Exactly. Or if I wasn't in the mindset that I'm in right now, this is what I would do, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a conversation targeted towards a gender or a age group, but if you aren't there with the mindset, implement it, right? Because that's what I wish I would have known, so I didn't have to go and learn all of these things through trials, tribulations, wins, losses, whatever.
Exactly.
Right? And so really I want to open it up and just start by saying, if I told the younger me the number one thing, life is hard.
Life is hard, man.
Life is hard, man. I think it's hard for women. I think it's hard for men, but nobody really has that conversation with you on how difficult it is being an adult. Not that being an adult is difficult, but everything that comes with life is difficult, right? And really, as an 18-year-old, you don't think about how your choices impact your future.
Yeah.
And as an 18-year-old, and maybe you guys can relate to this, and maybe you can too, I didn't make the best choices as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to my parents as much as I wish I did. I call up my dad all the time, and I tell him, hey, man, you were right. Mm-hmm. You were right about this. Yeah. I didn't see what you were doing when you told me, hey, I can't go to this person's house, or I can't go to this party or whatever, but I do now.
Yeah.
I do understand it.
Yeah, everything comes to light. You know what I mean? I was the same exact way. My number one father figure in my life was my grandpa.
Yeah.
You know, and I was always in that mindset of, I feel like every late teens, early 20s, 18-year-old thinks that they have it figured out with the limited life experience that they do have. And it's like you can't even fathom the scope in which they're talking from, because you haven't experienced that much life. So the appreciation factor is not necessarily there. I feel like if the appreciation factor was there and we had that broadened scope to listen, not just with our ears, but with our hearts, we would get a lot further. And that's why we wanted to bring this conversation to the table, so that we can bring this to the forefront of what that would actually look like.
Right. And that's why I wanted to start off with life is hard, because everything that we're going to be talking on is going to help alleviate the hardness or difficulty of life.
And that's a beautiful thing, man, because why we say life is hard is because you get thrown curveballs that you don't know are coming around the corner. And that's what life is, man. It's the hardships that you go through in life. And unless you're prepared with the proper mindset around these hardships, you're going to be taken for a ride. That roller coaster is going to be up and down, loops this way. And unless you really have that mindset centered in place and your flag is grounded to where you can't be shaken, you're going to go along for that ride, and it's going to be a hell of a life.
Yeah. Do you ever have those like internal thoughts of like, when I was a kid, did my parents think the way that I'm thinking right now, and like understand that life is how it is? Like, has life always been like this? And I was just young and immature, and I wasn't like intellectual in that sense. and that's how my parents were, or is life getting harder and harder and harder?
I don't know, man, because I mean, that's a great question, because I do find myself thinking about this a lot. Like, is this life? And to be, completely honest with you, here I am about to be 35 in September. And that's what I'm chalking it up to. Like, I see so many parallels, so many different examples that do lead us to that same exact destination. It's like people go through the same things. It might be different journeys, right? You might be going through different hardships, but at the end of the day, it leads you back to the same place. And so our parents are sitting here with this conversation like,
yeah.
But it's not until, I think, when you hit that point yourself, that's when it clicks for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I do feel like this is the ultimate revolutions. The same revolution around the sun happens. Right. It's just your maturity, your mindset in that given time is how you interpret it. And life is all about interpretation.
Yeah. And notice I said life is hard. It doesn't suck, right? I didn't say life sucks. I think even with life being hard, life is still beautiful. I think life being difficult, going through hard times, bad times, good times, everything in between, that's what makes life beautiful.
Yeah.
And again, that's why mindset and perspective is super important. Again, while we're having this conversation, because preparation leads to understanding how life actually is beautiful and not being a victim.
Yeah, but when you're 18, your life is this big. You've lived this much life. And that's why that mindset is there, because you haven't really gone out into the real world per se yet. And once you get in the real world, that's why we say it's hard, because everything starts happening. And it's like, dude, we have to have, like you said, the decision-making process. Every decision that we make now at 18 years old is going to propel us for the rest of our life, hopefully 60, 70, 80 years down the road. And so all of these decisions is absolutely critical. And it's like, so many people at that point, for me, was one of them. We talked about this before, why we joined the military in the first place. It's like one of the biggest decisions that you can make at that given point is like, what even am I going to do with this one and only life that I've been given?
Yeah.
And then the decision compounded after that. And then the decision compounded after that. And then you have to make decisions when you're trying to go through that decision process of what am I going to do with this one and only life? And then life starts dumping on you at the same time. You have people that lose life around you, right? You lose loved ones, you have heartbreaks, you have, potentially you lose yourself. And so all of these compile on top of those decision-making processes. And it's like, man, how am I ever even going to get through this? And that's why it seems like life is hard, man.
Absolutely. And that's a great segue into what I want to additionally build off of life is hard is being okay with not having an answer for that exactly, like what you want to do with this one and only life. For me as an 18-year-old, I put so much pressure on myself because all of my friends in high school they knew what college they wanted to go to. They knew their degrees, their degree path. Oh, I'm going to go do what my parents do, and I'm going to go be XYZ. And I'm like,
They had a plan.
I did not have a plan.
Our plan was the no plan.
And it was figuring it out on the way. Like, I guess I'll go and get my credits done, but I don't really want to be doing that because I just don't know what I want to be doing. I'd rather not go to school. Yeah. But being okay with not having the answers and not comparing yourself in a negative way. That's one of the things that I did. I would always think to myself, what's wrong with me? How come everybody else has it together? How come I don't have a plan? Like, are these people better than me? Am I not as good as them? And I started to take a hit on my self-image, which when you do that, you limit your opportunities because you're putting yourself into a smaller box.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all about. And that's exactly what we wanted to bring light today. Like, if you don't know necessarily what you want your ultimate life plan to be, well, in the meantime, we got to develop life skills. You know what I mean? And that's going to be these life skills that we're talking about or going to talk about is what propels you no matter what path you take, no matter what life brings. I think every younger individual should begin to understand these things, implement that in your life so that life becomes less hard. Even if you don't necessarily know what you're doing as a specific path, you begin to go down a growth path. You begin to develop skill sets. You begin to eliminate what you don't like. You find passion in what you do like. And it's these things that, come up that allow you to make that right decision. But, we can't fall idle just because we don't exactly have the answer in the moment. And that's what you're talking about.
Right.
We can't allow that to keep us idle and not going anywhere.
Exactly.
You know, you have to do things along the way to find your way.
Right. And I have two things with that, right? Because I was a person, I had a dream and I knew I wanted to get there. I didn't have a plan, right? So I think the best place to start is to figure out how you want to live.
Yeah.
What is that life that you want to live, right? And then there's only a few different ways that you can get there, right? And you've seen how other people live that life. And we've talked about this in previous episodes of mirroring what they do, right? Mm-hmm. Reaching out, talking to somebody that lives that life, or YouTube University, right? Figure out, hey, what do they do? How did they do that? What content do they have? How can I learn? Is there any seminars? Is there people that I can go and network with? I think that's so important. If you don't have a plan, put yourself in positions to have experiences to figure out how you want to live.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about having that, I call it the sponge mindset.
Yeah.
At that point in your
Look
life,
for opportunities.
Just be an open sponge. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even if you're not necessarily passionate about something, learn from everybody that's around you. Start with your loved ones, start with your parents. Even if you don't necessarily agree with what they're saying in the moment, dissect and try to understand where they're coming from, right? Because they might not ultimately be the best communicators. Your reality is what you interpret. You know what I mean? And so when it comes down to that, just learn how to ultimately take a step back and just take everything in. I was so combative at a young age, because I thought that I knew the answers. I thought that I had a plan. I thought that this is what, ultimately I was going to do, which was so false from reality. But ultimately take a step back and just soak everything in. Instead of combating the first thing that they tell you, dive deeper, ask the questions, learn to understand that they're not always going to be there. Especially when it comes to your loved ones. There will come a time where they leave this earth and you're going to wish that you absorbed everything that they were talking about, and you were going to wish that you had time left, that you had those conversations. So it's all about being present, being in the moment, soaking everything up, and then picking and choosing behind the scenes from what you've gathered on what that might be your direction.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's one thing that I was definitely bad at when I was younger. I did not listen to the advice that was given to me by my loved ones, and that that got me into situations that I learned from, right?
Oh, you're always
but it could have been avoided.
Yeah.
It could have been avoided, and heartbreak would have been avoided. Tumultuous times would have been avoided. It all was great because I know how to get a positive from it. It still couldn't have been avoided. And that's what wisdom is, right? Is taking advice from other people that can see that or have gone through that. And so I thought as 18 years old, I was already a man, right? And I was like, my mentality, I'm like, I'm not going to listen to you, dad, that's been around on this earth for like 50 years. I'm a man. I make my own decisions. I know more than you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think a lot of that stems from,
ego.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Well, and what the ego stems from, tell me if I'm wrong. But, you begin to evaluate. What you said is you started with a dream. You started with the life that you ultimately
You don't live that, so why should I listen to you?
And that's the trap that I ultimately fell in, was like, I don't want this life. I want out here. You're not living that life. And then you almost fall into the trap of, therefore, everything that you say, you don't find validity in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you don't have any credibility. You don't even know my path. You don't know what I'm talking about. Versus if you take a step back and you listen to the life principles that they're talking about, that's synonymous no matter what journey you go for.
I don't even think it was that for me specifically. I was just hard-headed, man. Like,
me too.
I was the person that I had to get hit in the head a bunch of times to understand, like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do that.
You know how many face palms my grandpa did? Because he
don't even have a face anymore.
That's what I'm saying. It is just a palm. That's all it is.
You got a Facebook, no face.
And I don't have any more. I couldn't say I had more admiration for my grandfather than I do to this day, because now reverse engineering my life is like, you have to go through those moments of beating your head before you get that aha moment. And then you have the aha moment, and it's like, that's the only time where it's like, okay, I truly do understand exactly where it is that they were coming from. But you do have to sometimes go through those. But the more times that you actually go through those, that's what breaks your ego down, because you're like, okay, this happened the last 5 times. He was actually right the last 5 times. Maybe I should actually start listening. And that's the ultimate shortcut to success.
Absolutely. And so when it comes to that path, that life that you want to live, one other piece of advice I'd give that goes into all of this is be mindful of who you surround yourself with and hold yourself to a higher standard than your peers, right? Because typically birds of a feather flock together. So in my friend group, I wasn't the only one that didn't have a plan. Almost 4 out of the 5 people that were around me didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one, so I was like, this kind of sucks because I want to be further along, but we're all in this together. So, it justified like my emotion and my feelings about the situation, rather than like if I held myself to a higher standard, like even in that group of like, I'm not okay with this, I got to go and figure it out. I got to really go sit down and build a plan or a path. I think it's one of the most important things I could have done back then. And I ultimately got to that. That's where the Air Force really came into play, because I got frustrated. And we've talked about in the past how frustration is a great tool. But if you could graduate high school and just have the mentality of, I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard than everybody around me, you'll already be leaps and bounds ahead of your competition, your peers.
Yeah, well, think about, there's 2 things of what you just said there. Number one, you said 4 out of the 5 people that I was hanging with didn't have a plan. So that tells you right out the gates, that's why that was your circle, because it brought normalcy around that. You didn't feel bad because that's what was the acceptance factor within that group, within that circle, right? And then you ultimately joined the Air Force. What did that do? It plucked you out of that circle into a whole new world that you didn't even know existed. Right. You know what I mean? And then you get into new circles, or you start finding your way within that. But I think that broadened, and speak if I'm wrong, but that broadened your horizon once you were actually plucked out of the acceptance factor that brought the normalcy around that.
Yeah, well, for me, to be honest, I was just frustrated with my friends. Not that they're bad people, but I was like, I don't want to be just hanging my entire life. Like, for me, the motivation was women, as every 18-year-old was. Like, I'm like, dude, I got to get crap figured out, because
I gotta live a life. I gotta
live a life. Like, man, I want to impress women. Like I want to be more interesting. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't say I was a pothead by any means, but I'm like, I don't want to just be doing things that potheads do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just,
and then you get into that mindset, like, okay, if you are chasing women, not necessarily chasing tail, but if you're after a love interest, it's like, I got to build myself to create a life that's going to attract the type of woman that I actually want to have.
Exactly. And like, as an 18-year-old dude, my mentality was, if I meet her dad, what's he going to think about me that's working a bullshit ass job?
Just a dead end job, not really doing anything with your life. But the separator is, do you have goals and aspirations to back that? Like, is this a temporary thing? Like, am I leveraging this tool in the meantime, while I'm actually progressing on working things? Or is this just it?
Right. And it's not to say that, again, those people weren't bad. I just saw more for myself than just that group.
Yeah.
And even as we continue to grow in life, like, that should always be the mentality too of like, I want to be better. Like, I don't want to be the smartest person in my circle. I don't want to be the most successful person in my circle. That's really the root of that mentality. It's like, I want to keep elevating my life. Like, I want to hang around people that make money. And then you start hanging around people that make money, and you're like, oh shoot, now I got to hang around people that make even more money or even more successful in these different categories in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, it's the old adage of, you never want to be the biggest fish in the pond. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're the biggest fish in the pond, it's time to find a new pond, because that meant you hit your ceiling, right?
Right.
And, my ego didn't allow that for the longest time. It's like, no, I need to take a step back. I need to be a small fish in a large pond, and I need to surround myself with the larger and larger fish that are going places in life, right? It's not necessarily the amount of money, but it's who I surround myself with. Are they pulling greatness out of me?
Right.
Are they making me and forcing me to step outside of my comfort zone? Are they truly supporting me in my own personal decisions? Like, are we raising each other's standards? If you're not raising the standard for the people that you surround yourself with, it's time to reevaluate who you actually surround yourself with, because that should be the ultimate number one thing that you look for in a friend, in a running mate, in a relationship. Does this person sitting across the table from me, are they raising the standard in my life? If the answer is no, hey, I'm going to be that person to raise that standard. And if you don't want to come with, that's totally fine. And, a little bit of a sidebar, that's what the military did more than anything in my life. Like we were talking about, it forced us to pluck ourselves out of the circle, but we were able to identify in the first place, like you were talking about, most people don't have a plan. Those aren't bad people, but it never made going back, my words, more true, is when I separated myself and I came back to visit home 5 years later, 10 years later. I came back from the military to visit my family, and you had the same exact people
doing the same
that were
thing.
doing the same exact thing as we were in the first place.
Bro.
And it's like, what if that was me? If I never plucked myself from the group, I would have been the fifth one.
Bro, my first job ever at 15 years old, work at Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, nice.
Delicious food.
Yeah.
There's still people there.
Same one.
Same one.
15
that
years
worked
later.
16 years later.
Whew.
And maybe they're good with that.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't have to be you.
Exactly. I just can't imagine that, man. But going back to everything that you're saying on friend groups, people you're around, and you can have other people where you're at that are as ambitious as you.
Yeah.
Right. That want a better life for you. You want a better life for them, that are just as ambitious, and that holds you to a higher standard. And that's why we've connected so much. That's why we've been around each other for like the last 10 years, because we hold each other to a higher standard. We can have those conversations like, hey, bro, like, let me talk to you for real quick.
Yeah.
Don't be moving like this, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. And that's why I appreciate you, man. I
That's
love you. Love you.
Yeah, we always
Appreciate
have
you.
to give each other our flowers, because even before you said it, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, bro, look what created our brotherhood and why we're moving stronger in the same direction 10 years later.
Because we've been like this, been through good times, bad times, whatever. And then we've kept on holding each other to a higher standard and continuously elevated throughout life. And now we're on this journey of life. We've created a bond. We've created a brotherhood. Like, when I introduce people to you, I tell them that you're my brother. They actually think you're my brother.
Yeah.
We're not related.
Yeah.
But we might as well be, because that
Exactly.
bond is so tight.
Yeah.
That, like, just that brotherhood is just
Sometimes
thicker than
bonds
blood.
are stronger than blood.
Thicker than blood, man.
You know what I mean? And we keep that hunger, and that's what keeps us established, because that hunger for growth, that hunger for more, that hunger to get better is actually only every time that we get together, that grows even more. And that's the point of a strong relationship, of a strong friendship, is just exactly that point. Every time that you get together, are you moving backwards or are you moving forward?
Exactly.
And every time we leave, we're fucking hungry, bro.
Exactly. And that's just about chasing the greatest version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Chasing the greatest version of yourself. I, at 18 years old, was chasing girls, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's all I think most 18-year-old boys
I think so, man.
care about. Like,
It's the
the weekend,
adolescence. Yeah.
the
What you
weekend,
getting into the weekend.
We're gonna party. Are we gonna see some girls? Or let's go to the mall. Let's see some girls, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
just the teenage boy mentality.
Even your career path or your job,
Don't
you're
cancel
making money
us, but
for that.
Exactly. It's like, all right, I got my first check. I'm gonna go take her on a
I can't
little
wait
movie
for this
date.
weekend. You live in weekend after weekend.
Exactly. So chase the greatest version of yourself, not women. And then you do that, women will come.
Yeah, the right ones. The ones that you're actually worth having.
Yeah.
And that you're building yourself for, to be able to attract the strong women. Because everybody said, every strong man, it said every strong man has an even stronger woman behind the scenes, behind them, for enforcing that. But you're not going to have that supportive factor, that supportive spouse, that supportive relationship if you're not first who you need to actually become.
But you're going to attract all options. What I'm saying is your options will increase, giving you the greater ability to actually choose and have access to that person.
The marketplace opens for yourself.
Exactly, rather than limiting yourself to, a girl that likes to smoke weed because you smoke weed as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The surface
and
level
back
type of
then,
relationships
that was dope.
There are, yeah.
Literally.
But once you start, finding this self-discovery within yourself, like, no, there's a little voice there. There's a little flame that's flickering. You know what I mean? And I want more, and I have to grow this. And if this is not flickering the flames, I need to find somebody that grows that flame, which, segues my personal thought of what I would tell my 18-year-old self along those same lines is when you're going through that phase, don't be afraid of letting your voice be heard. You know what I mean? I know we talked about it last episode whenever we're sitting in class or wherever in a group function and, somebody asks a question and we don't even want to raise our hands. We're afraid to let our voices be heard out of the fear of being wrong. And that's one of the things that stand true to this day of if I could go back, that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give myself. Even if you're wrong, let your voice be heard. That's what creates fellowship. That's what creates strong relationships because that allows people a glimpse into who you actually truly are. That's where networking begins. That's where sometimes the best relationships come out of left field, but that would not happen if you don't open your mouth. You know what I mean? And then it's all encompassing. Open your mouth, but do the inside work. You know what I mean? Go inside, do the internal work, develop the skill sets, find your passion, but then along the way, don't be afraid to let your voice heard. For so long, my mouth stayed shut, and I just, it handicapped me. It really handicapped me.
I wish it would have stayed shut, personally. But
Sometimes.
But going into that, right, it's important to understand that you have to stand for something. So your voice can be heard. As an 18-year-old, I didn't really stand for much. I didn't even know what I stood for. I didn't know what my values. I didn't know what mattered to me. Again, basketball, girls, and just going to work. And I didn't even really like going to work. But
Exactly.
Understanding what you stand for, that way when you give your opinion and you do have the opportunity to speak, you know why you're saying these things.
Exactly.
Right? Because look at the world that we live in right now, right? There's all these bad things going on. Everybody's protesting. And so many times I see these videos of people interviewing people that are protesting about a war, whatever it may be, right? Like we live in America. You're entitled to believe and protest whatever you want to. I'm not saying anything, but at least understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So many people don't understand what's going on and they get attached to it emotionally rather than understanding it logically. And I know for myself, as that 18-year-old and dissecting why I wasn't confident in myself, but I also didn't have like a really big leg to stand on in what my opinion was. Like I'd give my opinion, but I couldn't back it up.
And because guess what, man? If you stand for nothing, you
fall for everything. Yeah.
And that's never been more prevalent because like you said, you fight till your face is blue, but at the end of the day, you don't even understand the roots of what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
And people ask you the real questions, not surface level questions. And once you get below surface, it's like, oh, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I was just, this person said that, or I admired this person. That's what they stood for. And so I followed suit. But if you ask me the actual grassroots of what that is, I don't know what I'm fighting for.
Right. And again, I'm not even hating on the people that don't know why they're like, I give the protesting example. I'm not hating on them for protesting because I wasn't protesting, but I'd give you one objection.
Yeah.
And then after that, you won the debate. You won the argument because
and it's
I had
not even
nothing to say.
Yeah, it's not even the protesting at the end of the day.
Right,
All
yeah,
we're
this is
asking
example.
for is just to understand what you're fighting for. What's your root cause? Does it line with your values? Are you actually truly fighting for what? Are you believing in your own words? Do you even know why the words are coming out of your mouth? You know what I mean? Do you stand for that? That's the biggest thing. But like you said, that just builds confidence, man. Let your voice be heard, but that voice is earned. You know what I mean? How many times do the people say, like the dude in the corner, like that dude's one of the smartest dudes in the room, but he doesn't talk unless he has something to say.
Yeah. You ever heard the wise man says nothing?
Yeah.
Just sit back in the room and just observe. And then you talk when you need to.
But when that dude talks,
like,
everybody listens.
Shoot.
Everybody listens.
Again, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and that's why I love this point is because if you're ever in a work meeting, a group meeting, or whatever, there's a group of people. It's always the stupidest people that gotta say something. It's the stupidest people that are the loudest. It's like the movie Idiocracy. All the idiots in the movie are having all the kids and not contributing and adding value to Earth. And all the smart people that can contribute to Earth are not having kids.
Yeah. And it's two contributing factors to that.
Talk is cheap.
Talk is cheap. But the two contributing factors is most of the people that are like that is they don't talk to add value. They talk because they want to be heard.
Exactly.
And those are two diabolically different approaches
Diabolical.
to life and to be heard. Is your voice worth listening to?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's the end of the day. Do I just want to be heard? Do I want to be praised? Do I want a pat on my back? Or is what I'm coming out of my mouth out? Am I deciding to talk because I truly believe in my heart of hearts that it'll add value to somebody?
Dude, what a hell of a position to take while we have a podcast.
That's what I'm saying, right? We don't have anybody challenging us, but that's why we're saying what we're saying, because
Exactly.
What's the name of our podcast?
I forgot.
It starts with a V.
Valued Up.
Oh, shoot. Adding value, point blank, man.
Episode 8.
Tune in.
Yeah. They are right now.
That's what I'm saying.
What, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh, you
go
good,
ahead.
man. So the second thing that I'm going to talk about, right, everything is all encompassing, so it builds off each other. But if you're going to let your voice be heard, man, how you're going to really do that, like you said, it was confidence-based. The foundation of finding your voice is confidence. How are you going to do that? You have to build your own personal momentum. And so what I'm talking about, if I could go back in time and just have a hour-long conversation with myself, what that really looks like is, dude, build discipline in your life. And this is me talking to Ryan Anthony Cillessen, literally myself as an 18-year-old, because discipline was literally non-existent. We've talked about it past episodes. That's why I wasn't, I couldn't reach my athletic potential because I didn't have the discipline in my life. Did I have some talent? Did I have skill set? I wasn't the best person at all, but I truly believe if I actually applied myself, it would have been a whole different ball game. No pun intended, except big pun. Big bun. We're running around here. But what that looks like is, dude, how you do that is instill discipline in your life. Get on a growth plan. Find out what that actually looks like. What are other successful people doing? Not necessarily the actions that they're taking to get the money or, the career path or whatever the things look like, but what is the discipline in their life? What systems do you have in place in your life? You know what I mean? What's your morning routine? What's your afternoon routine? And why I say routine? Because John Maxwell talks about the fact that everything success falls on your daily routine. If you don't have a routine, if you're not dead set and concrete valued in your life every single day, where are you going to end up? Everything rises and falls on your daily routine. And so you got to find something to get that discipline in your life. And it just has to start with one thing. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to decide one thing. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do this for a week.
I'm going to make my bed.
There's a reason why that is one of the most famous talks and all over YouTube. One has one of the most views is a Navy SEAL talking about that. Make your bed. Why? Because that sets the tone for the rest of the day. The most wins that you can get in the early part of your day, that builds the momentum for more wins throughout. But if you wake up and you should make your bed and you don't make your bed, well, it's like, okay, I already set myself up for failure. And you already subconsciously thinking like, okay, the next task that I had, it's not going to hurt me today, so I just don't feel like doing it. I already didn't make my bed, so guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait till tomorrow and start over. And then you don't get any dubs for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's learning how to build these type of routines, how to get systematic approaches in your life and get on a growth plan.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Like making your bed, like for example.
It's funny, but we're being literal.
Yes, but also I think routines are super important. But if you're chalking up your success to making your bed rather than doing the thing that's actually going to get you forward, and I know that's not what you mean by that, but that might be digested as that of like, dude, if I don't make my bed, I might as well just like wake up and like there's still time in the day to go and do what you need to do to move your life forward, right? It's a great place to start if you've never had any discipline in your life, right? And I'm speaking from a place, this is actually as an 18-year-old, I had great discipline because I had sports. I had to continuously show up in the off season, on season, put in extra hours while working a job. Like I understood the value of being disciplined because I couldn't rely on my talent. I wasn't the tallest. I wasn't the strongest.
Okay, but who taught you that? Because we had the same exact approach. I was an athlete my whole life too. That kept me off the streets. But the discipline within the sport did not come naturally.
For me, it did, is what I'm saying. Like that, I understood the importance because I wanted to be.
But I'm saying, where did it stem from?
I wanted to be great. Like I didn't want to just make the basketball team.
Yeah.
I knew I could already do that. Like I was good in that regard, but I was good. I was never the best, and I wanted to be the best. And so I knew, hey, if I wanted to be the best, I got to do what the best are doing. I would hang around the best.
Yeah.
Because that's just what you do on a team. You understand the culture, right? Like the starters hang with the starters.
Yeah.
Even before the game, like the starters are going to get food and the bench players aren't.
Yeah.
Right? And so I saw that, and even when I wasn't a starter, I'd still hang out with the starters. I'd still do what the starters did.
Yeah.
Right? Because I knew what I wanted to eventually become with that.
And you knew that's what would ultimately get you there.
And that's rubbing those shoulders. Yeah.
You follow in the suit, your time will come.
Right. But it's, I go back to you got to do what's going to get you forward. We talked about this in a conversation we had the other day, activity versus productivity. If we're talking about making your bed as a literal sense, and again, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, but if you're making your bed in the literal sense, but you're like, man, I want to be successful, but you don't make your bed, you're like, dude, I'm never going to be successful. Let me wait till tomorrow. That's not a good approach. It's not about the routine of like, all right, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to drink my coffee, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to start working on all these skills. Focus on those skills. The routine should make you better to build a big business or be successful in whatever you want to create. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I got to positively disagree with you for a second right
I know you will.
Because I think we're watering down the fact of what it means to make the bed. See,
I'm saying in the literal sense.
No, I know.
Like things that are non-productive for you actually want to
I know what you're saying, but...
Because that becomes a task list, a checklist, right? Like
yeah, but you're going too further, man. What I'm trying to talk about is the fact of, let's talk about the people like myself. This is why I'm talking to the 18-year-old me. You just said you had discipline in your life.
Right.
That was not a factor. I did not. You know how much that actually making my bed would have set me up? You're coming from the approach because that wasn't a big thing to you. That would have been a success principle for me, was getting that W. It's not about making your bed. The Navy SEAL even breaks that down and talks about why it's so important. So I'm literally saying that is productivity, because if you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't even have a career path, you don't know what you like, you don't even have anything tangible to set yourself apart. That's what I'm talking about. Start with activities that you can get ingrained with. It's not the act of making your bed. Literally, your sheets don't care. It's the fact that I told myself that I'm going to do something every time 100%. I woke up, and then you follow through on it. If you're going to follow through on that, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
For sure.
And that's the mindset centered around making your bed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like you're talking about, if you elevate yourself and you you promote to this level, you promote to this level in your personal growth, you're like, okay, I got the bed down. Out. Now, when you understand everything that looks like, it's all about creating personal momentum. That's the mindset behind it, is creating the personal momentum.
For sure. How you do one thing is how you do everything. But I say what I said because you can get really good in being disciplined at doing non-productive things.
Yeah.
Like you can clean the whole house. You can wash your tires, take a toothbrush, and you're like, dude, I feel great because I did all of these things.
Yes.
Activity. Rather than I did the one thing that's going to lead to the results I want, productivity.
Exactly. But remember, we're talking to 18-year-old self.
Right.
That is activity and productivity in today's day.
Right. Absolutely. And that's your perspective and that's your opinion. And you're entitled to that, just like the people that protest.
100%.
But what I'm saying is, for the 18-year-old version of me who understood that, I'll be honest, outside of basketball, I was lazy.
Yeah.
Because I was focused on being productive in that one thing. And that's all I cared about, because I was looking towards a bigger goal. 100% see what you're saying. 100%.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to state that for the people watching, to differentiate activity versus productivity.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I know where you're coming from, and that's just what I'm saying is, that's still talking 6 layers deep from the overall point of what we're talking about. Some people, they're only at, especially 18-year-olds, they're at right there. They can't even sometimes understand the mindset of what you're talking about because they're stuck right there.
That's why I explained it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but then you're going 3rd, 4th, 5th layers. The importance of making the bet.
I'm speaking to everybody, not just the 18-year-old version of me, even the people that are further beyond.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
But where are we starting?
With our audience.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this is going to be the last episode of the Valued Up podcast. Nah, if you knew Ryan and I personally, this is literally every single day for us, and people probably watching like, oh dude, those guys are mad at shit. Nah, this is just who we are.
Well, we talked about this is where our brotherhood stems from, because this is how
we always like challenging each other and each other's thoughts, and like, okay, well, let me prove you right, let me prove you wrong, XYZ. Like, that's just what we like to do.
Yeah.
And I think the people would agree with me that
we'll see in the comment section.
Yeah, comment. Team J, honey.
We'll see. See, I just have to speak my words that matter. If you don't comment, you don't comment. If you're Team Joe, you're Team Joe. But hey, we'll see in the comments. I don't have to make myself heard.
Shout out silly. I'm like, oh shoot, man, this podcast channel sucks. Go ahead. What else you got?
You need a little heat, man. You need a little heat. That's what makes you better.
That's what I brought to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
you got offended.
It's all about that. Ain't nobody got offended.
I brought logic to it, and he wanted to be emotional.
Again, we'll let them judge.
All right, what else do you have to talk?
That's you, man.
Okay. Let's see here. So one thing I wanted to talk about, adding on to, again, everything, is don't try to fit in. Like, purposely don't try to fit in. Society is feeding you mediocrity, and there's so many distractions, there's so many traps out there that I can't even, why we live in it right now, but as a young, impressionable 18-year-old, there's so many distractions out there, man.
Yeah.
Just Instagram, TikTok, trends, music. It's all watering down the life that you want to live. And this is why building off of making your bed is so important. And
see, now you talking, now you speaking, now your words mean something.
Now they do. But that discipline factor is so important, because if you know how you want to live and you can be disciplined on a day-to-day on what to do, all those distractions don't matter. You got to be laser focused. This is why holding yourself to a higher standard is so important, because the people that you hang around, coworkers, family members, friends, whatever, are all falling in line with that mediocrity, with those distractions, right? And I've been victim to it as an 18-year-old.
We all have.
Even past 18 years old. I'm not even, like, it's so easy.
It's the societal norm these days, actually, to fit in. If you're not fitting in, you do something. And one thing that epitomizes this whole mindset is a quote that I actually got from my wife, and it's so beautiful. It says, the moment, it's like the game of Tetris. The moment that you try to fit in, you disappear.
Yeah.
Because you're everybody else. You know what I mean?
That's a
So
bar.
if you have to actually grow yourself to set yourself apart, you have to go against the grain and do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. The moment that you decide to fit in, you disappear.
Yeah, wear with a badge of honor. Like, be okay with people saying, why would you do that? Why don't you want to do this? Why don't you want to go out? Why don't you want to hang out? Dude, I want to build a better life. And in order to have something that's extraordinary, you got to do something extra.
Have to.
You can't be ordinary.
No.
You got to go above and beyond.
Have to.
And just normalize it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
in every aspect of your life.
Yes. And then the moment that you decide to step out and do that is when you find the other people that are there as well.
Yeah.
And then you're actually not isolated. You're not weird. You're not alone.
Yeah.
There's other people like you.
You'll be like,
it's just that process of getting from here to here. It's those circles that we're talking about. It's just you're stepping out of the uncomfortable, but you're not alone. It's just you haven't gotten to that pond yet. You need to go get into that other pond.
Exactly. You like
with those like-minded individuals.
You're like, dude, you make your bed for no reason too? Me too. That is so crazy. We're gonna be successful.
Exactly. And again, that's where it's a very specific reason why you make your bed. That's why they're gonna comment Team Silly, because there's a reason. And that's
wait,
the
hold on.
point
I
of
thought
this.
you didn't have to say anything. See,
I just know how to plug myself at the end of the day too, and the right timing to do it.
Hold on, we need to unplug yourself. Like I see, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I said I wish he kept his mouth shut.
But I learned how to find my voice, man. If I'm going to talk about that,
Let's go. And he found his voice, and he found how to make his bed. So
exactly.
I love it,
but all jokes aside, man, I want to take a step to view something that I wholeheartedly feel is so important to me. What I would tell 18-year-old me. And it's taken a little bit different approach, a different direction than everything that we've been talking about. But it's just the season of life that I'm in. I've had some losses in my life recently, and it's to love deeper, to learn actually how to love. And why I say that is because 18-year-old me talking about what we've been talking about, you know, I wasn't the closest with my family. I was kind of the black sheep, teaching my own way, doing my own thing. Like we're talking about, ego driven. I didn't have the best come up, you know, the best bring up, you know, being raised. And so I didn't always know what it actually looked like to have strong relationships, or what love looked like and what true love was actually centered around. And why I say that is because some of my favorite pastime right now, whenever I go get around family, I mean, we were just in Florida and your family was there, and what I love more than anything, man, is listening to stories.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing in the world right now, is getting around loved ones. That's why when I go home and my grandpa, I told you, I didn't listen to a word he said when I was 18. Now I hang off the tip of his tongue now every chance that I get, man. I'm like, dude, tell me more.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny because sometimes we'd be sitting at the kitchen table and he'd be giving these stories, and you know, my dad and him have always butted heads their whole life, and he thinks it's like people don't enjoy it. He gets annoyed by it. So my dad will be in the background like, here we go again. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, nah, man, like I'm eating this stuff up. I'm in the point of my life where like I can't get enough of it. And if I could change the way, if I could bring this to 18-year-old me and value and cherish those moments, our love would have been a lot different. You know what I mean? And I feel like, you know, going into my young relationships, going into my young marriage, going into just my brotherhoods and my friendships, dude, I've completely broken myself down in this area because I didn't even know how a hug felt. You know what I mean? I was never hugged growing up. I was never, you know, there was never really a I love you. You know, there was never a I love you, like, hey man, I love you, or son, I love you. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking from a victim mindset.
Right, yeah.
Like, I know what I always say now is grace is one of my best strong suits now, because I'm saying this from a place of love. Is my parents did the best with what they could. They did the absolute best with the hand that they were dealt. So I'm not speaking from a lack of like, right, oh, I wish I would have got this. I'm speaking from intentionality of this is what it looks like. This is where I am and why it was such a hardship for me, because I didn't receive it. Therefore, guess what? When I was in position to give that love, dude, I literally didn't even know how. And when I got in relationships, that's, you know, my young marriage, that's all she came from, was a loving Hispanic, you know, family. That's that Hispanic culture, the love, the physical touch, the hugs, the reassurance. I did not know how to provide that. I didn't even know what that looked like. I didn't know what to come out of my mouth. I didn't know what to say. You know what I mean?
Spanish.
And so I say all that to say is take the time. I thought it was corny. You know what I mean? I literally thought it was corny, but that's why I want to bring up this topic more so, is because, dude, just if you're going to learn any type of skill set, learn how to cherish every single moment that you have, especially with loved ones. Learn how to be the initiator of everything, because if you wait for a phone call from your family and you're not initiating those things, there will be a time where something unexpected happens and you will never receive a phone call ever again. How shitty are you going to feel in that moment? Like, I should have been the one to pick up the phone call. I should have been the one to apologize. I should have been the one to put everything aside. And I did that like 2 years ago, you know, with my dad, talking about this thing. I put it all on the table. And for the first time in our life, man, he apologized to me. He's like, dude, I'm sorry for your up and coming. I said, Dad, I understood a long time ago before this conversation. I said, don't beat yourself up. I said, Dad, you did the best with what hand you were dealt. You were the absolute best father that you could be at that time. I don't hold it against you. I'm here right now. Let's embrace where we're at right now and let us take us further moving forward. You see what I'm saying? And so that only happened because I did that heart work we're talking about life is hard.
Yeah.
Hard work is the hard work. And I prepped myself for this time. So now, therefore, I've had the same conversation with my mom. I've had the same conversation with my dad. I live guilt-free now.
Yeah.
I don't have any burdens, any ghosts in my closet. And now practicing that skill allows me to have grace with other people. I can help other people build and strengthen those relationships because of that. So all I'm going to say is, dude, things can be taken away at a minute. You can never get those moments that today we take for granted back once they're gone. And so just be the initiator and learn how to love. And always don't love necessarily the way that you want to be loved. Learn the other person's love language and love them, because that's what brings ultimate fulfillment. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the biggest, I know it's, again, a different direction, but dude, in my heart, in the season of life that I'm in, it's so important.
Yeah, it's when you're younger, you think you're
Invincible.
10 feet tall and bulletproof, right? Like, life is so young and new to you that the thought of somebody perishing, you perishing, getting injured, bad health, whatever, it's not even a thought. Like, at an 18-year-old, I wasn't thinking about anything. We were doing stupid stuff. I was driving around with my best friend hanging onto the windshield of my car, right? Like, that is dumb. It's funny, but it's dumb.
Yeah.
But you just think nothing can happen
to you or those around you. I'm always going to have my parents.
Exactly.
I'm always going to have my grandparents.
And as you get older, you start to realize, man, I only have a short period of time with them left, right? Like, if you don't live with your parents, right? They live in another state, or you see them once a year, right? And they're like 60 years old. Well, the average mortality rate in America is 77, right?
Yeah.
So if they're 60, you have 17 more times to see them if you see them once a year.
Exactly.
17 more times. That's crazy to think about. When you think about that, it forces you to enjoy and cherish those moments. One thing, I lost my grandparents on my dad's side at a young age, and I was a young teenager, and he was born in 1914.
Oh, wow.
And so I wish I had those conversations with him of like, Papa, what was it like growing up? What did you see? Like, I wish I was more inquisitive. And at that time, I just didn't care. I didn't even think to ask those things, because I'm like, he's going to be around forever when he was 94 years old, right?
Yeah.
And I'll never have those conversations. Never. But that's what losing him makes me cherish, like, my parents now.
It put things into perspective.
And then having children, that changes everything, because now you're looking at it from your parents' perspective, and you're like, you feel that love, that you haven't felt before. It's just a whole different ballgame. It just brings life full circle. Full circle. And I can't even imagine having
that brings life, period. That is life.
You fully understand life
and how precious
it is, how it comes and goes, how fast time is,
taken away,
how you need to get better. But it's one thing I was thinking about is, obviously I know your parents, I know your grandparents, I know your story in depthly, right? And it's just crazy what focusing on getting better in life, growing yourself, learning, will do to where you can have those mature conversations and turn around and be like, no, I forgive you, right? Because it's probably safe to say, if you didn't, you probably would have had and held a grudge against them, right?
Yeah.
Which is
100%. And on the opposite effect, maybe that's how I felt, but they would always have an open pit in their heart.
Yeah, because it wasn't addressed.
Something. Yeah, exactly. And then they'll have false narratives of how I actually feel. Maybe I had grace myself, and this is how I feel. I never told them. And then they held that apology in and went to their grave with that guilt that I felt some type of way that I actually didn't feel. But now, since I have that intentionality behind it, we all collectively get to live more freely. And that's the most important thing. And that's why I bring it up, because we're talking about love and this and that, but since that's the number one thing that puts things into perspective, that's what's allowed me to change my whole life and bring intentionality into everything that I do, whether it's relationships, whether it's career path, whether it's business now. Everything stems from that. crazy as it sounds. And that's why I hold so firm and will always forever speak on this, because these moments, those conversations, this reality that hit me like a ton of bricks, that's what ultimately provided intentionality in my life. And guess what that provided? The discipline that I so long yearned for.
Yeah.
All this stems from this love factor, man.
Yeah, but it's just crazy how you would think it would be opposite, right? Like,
yeah.
Like when you don't focus on those things, it'd be easier to forgive. And as you grow, as you quote unquote separate yourself from everybody else, you'd be, you know, more crusty and angry at those people because you're growing, your life is better, and you look back, and maybe it is like that for people, I don't know, but we're talking specifically for ourselves. But what a blessing, man. And seriously, shout out to you. It's incredible, incredible and incredibly mature to have those conversations as the child to your adults, because that's, for me, I look up to my parents. Those are my parental figures, right? Like when you're growing up, that's the first people you look up to. Then it's police officers and teachers, man. Right? Like, and stuff like that. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
My question, building off of that, though, is who taught you how to make your bed?
Who taught me how to make my bed?
Yeah.
The Navy SEAL.
Oh, shoot. It took a long time.
Because I understood the value of that video. I inserted it into my life. I started making my bed. And that's what brought this newfound love into my life. And now I'm a different man. So that's why I'm shout out. That's, hey, man. It all put things into perspective, baby. It allowed me to fall into
Own that mug.
Here you go. So make your damn bed. It goes deeper.
Yo, I'm gonna get on our YouTube and I'm gonna comment Team Silly just because of that.
Appreciate it, man.
I salute you on that. But good for you. Talking about love, talking about relationships. I wanted to speak about, and we've talked about this, but the 3 Ps.
Okay.
The 3 Ps: protect, provide, perform.
Yeah.
So important in a relationship, especially I think both sides, male and female.
Yeah.
But let's talk with protect.
Yeah.
Your spouse wants to feel protected, whether you're in a dating relationship,
100%,
a marriage, right?
Yeah.
They want to feel protected from somebody that's married in a relationship.
Yeah.
Talk about how your wife wants to feel protected. Like, what makes her feel protected?
So the foundation that I will always say is, you know, there's different layers to protection. Obviously, there's different, you know, multitudes of arenas what protection actually means. But what I've realized, the biggest foundation of that protection is peace of mind. They just want to have peace of mind, man. And it doesn't matter if it's man or female, just spouses in general. What I've realized is they just want peace of mind. Now, all the books that we read, we dove into this. Women want to feel loved. Men want to feel respected. Yep. But at the end of the day, everybody wants peace of mind. But that's what drives love a lot of times, you know what I mean? And that's what, you know, providing, that's what protection, but you're talking about protection first. If you can provide peace of mind to women, they will forever feel protected. You know, it's not just about, hey, if somebody broke into the house, can I protect them?
Right.
Can I beat somebody
of course,
up? Can I,
you know,
are they going to get kidnapped? Whatever the case may be, that real masculine energy.
Machismo.
Yeah, but more than anything, it's the opposite of that. It's, are you providing them clarity? Are you providing them reassurance? Are the words coming to your mouth in alignment with the actions that you're talking about? Yeah. Because if you can't follow through on things that you're going to say you're going to do, if your spouse is looking at that and you don't have follow through in your life, they're not going to have peace of mind. You know what I mean? A lot of times people, you know, are like, you know, I want to chase this career. I need to get this life. I'm working so damn hard because I want this. A lot of times, and this is my own personal experience, I'm not speaking for everybody, my own personal experience is what I realized was they wasn't actually doing that out of self-want. They was doing it out of lack of what I was bringing to the table. They feel like they need to fill the gap themselves so that if something did happen to me, they would be okay. They were chasing the career because they were fearful of I would drop the ball ultimately because I wasn't reassuring them. I wasn't bringing what I needed to the table. I wasn't showing that follow through.
Exactly. And what that boils down to is character. I'm so glad you brought it exactly to what I wanted to talk about, because it's your character. Yeah. Right? Guard it. Like, are you a man that can guard your wife's heart? Can you handle her emotions? Do you truly understand her? Do you know how to love her? All of that has to do with protecting.
Yes, man. And that's why I talked about love before this, because again, I didn't know how to love like I was talking about. But now what I realized again is the true love factor for my wife and, for females out there. I had to tap into a little bit of, my feminine energy or femininity behind that, of how to actually love them. It didn't come from the macho mentality. It came from my words, how I loved it. It came from the hugs. It came from the reassurance, like, babe, we got this. We're going to conquer the world. It's you and me. I don't care if we're in a mansion. I don't care if we're on, living in a cardboard box under a bridge. I got your back. And then it's all the small things matter, dude. That's what I realized more than anything too. I used to throw all the small things away. Like, that's not important. I didn't follow through on that. That didn't make a difference. Dude, everything makes a difference for your spouse. You know what I mean? You got to follow through on everything, because like you said, how you do one thing, how you do everything, that forges your character. So if I was dropping the ball on little things, to me it was like, that's a little thing that doesn't matter. Guess what that says to them? If you're dropping the ball on the little things, what the freak is going to happen when the big things arise? I can't count on you.
Exactly.
And so that's why everything is everything, and you just have to learn
everything is everything.
How to be able to speak that through your actions.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to take a shot at a demographic of people or anybody that does this, but like, we play video games, like we play 2K, right? But I've never been the type of person of, like, in a relationship, like, come home and like, I understand it's a place to, like, numb yourself, right? Long day, like, let me relax my mind. Yeah. But when you're in a relationship, it's about showing up, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Having kids is the same thing. Showing up. It doesn't matter how long your day has been. Doesn't matter how stressful it is. And this is the badge that we wear as men. Yeah. It's just, you got to put on that armor, that superhero cape when you walk in that door. And it's not about numbing your mind. It's not about going and playing video games. Like, the people that go and play video games after work while their wife or spouse or significant other is in another room, just waiting to, like, hey, how's your day, whatever. Like, and you got like 5 hours on the video game. Like, she does not feel love for. Like, she's questioning you, like, what you're doing, your desires in life. I know. And I've had conversations with women that feel the same way. That's why I'm speaking for them. But I've always viewed that as, like, not meeting the standard. Again, I'm not hating on people that play video games for fun. I'm saying that is an outlet to get you through the tough times in life as a person here on earth.
Yeah, and it's all about the approach to everything. That's what we realize.
Like, I'm not saying don't do that.
No, I know. And what you're saying, because
I'm trying to be light with this conversation and not sound like a dickhead or anything like that. No, I'm talking about raising the bar, you're straight being raising the standard.
You're being anti-video game, man. That's what you're doing.
Well, you make your bed, so.
No, I'm playing with you. But what I'm saying is, I know exactly from it, because also I've seen, like, the TikToks and the memes and stuff, like, the women are like, no, I love my man playing video games. That's, he work a 9 to 5, he come home tired, that's his release. I'm actually cook him his dinner. That's all fine and dandy. That's great, because
that's understanding.
But that's the mindset. But she's being met first. It's all about prioritization and the approach when it comes to the priorities. If you are feeling, if the 3 P's are in place for you, then I'm going to get mine. We on the same page. You understand that it's not video games are stupid. If that's your release, bro, that's your release. Like, it's better than you out on the, corner smoking crack at the strip club or whatever the case may be. When you have kids, at home and whatever the case may be, bro. If that's your release and that's your safe place and you can dump, and then you pick up tomorrow and you put your armor back on to go out in the real world and slay dragons for your home, you do that. You do that at a high level, you know what I mean? But both of you have to have the understanding, like you said, if you come home, you got to make sure that your spouse's needs are met first, you know what I mean? And then these things fall into place. And then I can be playing video games. She's in her room reading a book. We feel loved. Our respect tanks are full. We're on the same page, and we're conquering the world.
Because that you're understanding each other in the relationship.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not. I know it sounds like I'm attacking people that play video games. The same thing that could be said for your career.
Yeah.
You're always gone.
Yeah.
12 hours a day. Like, your family, your significant other is the afterthought rather than like
The forefront.
The forefront. Right?
It's
Same thing with the
afterthought
gym.
versus the
You can
forefront.
replace it with anything that is, you know, you do for like a fun activity
Yeah.
or something that like is good for you. But if that is at a higher priority than your family, you're selfish. And this whole conversation is about raising the standard, raising the bar, and becoming the best version of yourself so you can actually get through life. That is not going to make your life better. And in fact, it's going to make more problems for your life. If you spend, 5 hours at the gym after working like 10 hours at work, bro, you don't have a family. You don't have a girlfriend. You don't have a wife. She's got her girlfriends and she lives in a house, but she ain't got you.
Yeah.
You're not there. You're not available emotionally.
Yeah. And what it stems from is actually you got to get the fourth P in place. And that's
Yeah.
our mascot.
I was about to say
Luna,
our mascot.
Shout out
Yeah.
Luna. But the fourth P in place.
Oh, let's not switch P's.
No, it's a fourth P.
Oh, okay.
What provides all this, and I absolutely love it. I forgot where
Did
I
you wanna
heard it
save that
like
for
a
the
year or two ago, is how you provide the three Ps is getting a PhD in your man or your wife. And that's how you prioritize. You learn what their love language is. You dissect yourself. You go to work in that area. And that's why I was saying before, love languages aren't the same. I had to learn, I was loving my wife how I felt I wanted to be loved, and she didn't feel loved because that wasn't her love language. You get a PhD, you study, you research, you get educated on how your spouse ticks, what their love language is. You go to work and you prioritize that and you put that first. Then everything that you want in life falls upon that. And then you can play the video games. You can go into the gym again, because if their tank is full, y'all conquer the world together, no matter what those things that you like to do together. So the fourth P is get your PhD in your man or your woman, your spouse, or your partner. It doesn't matter what that is. Your partner in general. Get a PhD in them, and you'll conquer the world.
Absolutely. Provide. Second P. Provision.
Yeah.
Like I'm speaking specifically about monetarily, right? Like as an 18-year-old guy, that was one of my biggest motivations of why I wanted to do better in life.
Yeah.
Is because when I got into position, I wanted to provide. And that, like, life is expensive. That's why life sometimes is hard. So go and do what you can on the forefront to where not only can you afford yourself and your lifestyle, you can also provide for other people. Providing monetarily is important. All of these are important, right? But the greater that you work on yourself now, you're going to increase your opportunities, your income, creating opportunities. And that alleviates everything. So many people experience financial stress, and money doesn't make you happy, but money contributes to happiness. No, you never heard anybody being, stressed out about having to pay their bills and being the most fired up person in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, broke doesn't make you happy. Money doesn't make you happy. It's ultimately internally, but providing provides protection, right? And that third P is performing. And like, I'm talking about performing like sexually, like, no, and this goes into your love languages and loving your spouse, right? Not being selfish, right? But like, for lack of a better term, laying it down. Like doing what you need to and handling business in that aspect. And I believe that creates a on fire relationship, and you keep that continuously going. You keep that fire in that relationship when you have all three P's working together. And that's how you do create that PhD with your man or your woman, is because all the main important pieces with the details are being hit on all cylinders.
Yeah, well, that's how you get the PhD in the first place, is you go to school, you understand all these things, but the most important thing about all of this is communication. You got to have the hard conversations.
Yeah, what do you like?
You have to be uncomfortable with each other. You're not the hottest person that's ever hit this earth, whether you believe it or not. You know what I mean? You have to let them tell you. You have to drop your ego, and then you actually build that up. That's why it's so important to have those conversations together in any area of life. If you ain't cutting the cheese, you ain't cutting the cheese. You know what I mean? And you could have all the money in your bank account that it could account for, or you could be broke, but they could still feel provided for, because it's all the intentionality behind things. Maybe you were dealt a tough hand. It's why you're broke. It's the why behind everything. You know what I mean? But if you go get your PhD and your partner and your spouse, those three P's will definitely fall into place. And then what you're talking about with that last P is, if you get the first two P's into place, that creates and equals intimacy. You know what I mean? That's what creates the fired up. That's what creates the yearning. That's what creates the wanting. That's why I want you. Like, we're tackling life together. All these things are in place. I feel respected. You feel loved. Guess what that creates? The coming together.
It's that connection.
It's the connection piece.
And
the intimacy.
That third P is just about understanding your partner, what they like, right? Like, we look at it from like a lot of times like a primal place of like, man, like, it feels good. But understanding, hey, what do you like? Yeah. Like, how can we do better in these intimate moments? I'm making you uncomfortable.
I don't get uncomfortable, but if you want to talk about it, I just so y'all know, I had no idea or preparation that we was diving into this, so I'm on the spot right now. But if you want to keep it a buck, it goes back to what I was talking about before. You initiate, you set the pace, you set the tone.
Yeah.
Ask the questions.
Exactly.
Drop your ego. I've talked about it in prior episodes. You can create this mindset with anything and everything you do. Create an open canvas. Drop the ego, create an open canvas, and that's how you get the PhD. That's what I'm talking about. That's where the education comes from. Have those tough conversations, and see, you brought it up. Now you laughing. I'm getting real, but that's exactly how you do it, right? Because like, you're like, oh, I'm the top performer. I'm an OG. This is what it is. Then why are you only doing it once a month? You know what I mean? Because they're not necessarily attracted to you. But if you're having the conversation, they see that you're putting in the effort, you're dropping the ego. Dude, that fires them up more than anything.
Exactly.
You know
They're
what I mean?
excited.
And then it comes full circle. And then that hits in every single area of life. And then it's the same approach to everything. And now, like you said, you just on fire with everything. But that communication has to be tenfold.
Yeah, my bad for bringing it up. Anyways,
we went there.
So 3 P's, super important. And this is the approach for a valued, meaningful relationship. If you want all the fuckboy stuff, you can get that at Fresh and Fit, right? Like, because it's just a different approach to it's not, I wouldn't even call what they talk about relationships. It's just a different approach for a spouse or women.
Yeah. I mean,
I want something in my life that's actually valuable, that I want to keep around, that can have those conversations, that I can create those intimate moments with. When you're 18 years old, you don't know how to have a relationship. And it's through trial and error that you slowly learn. But even those that have been in a relationship for a long time, don't take it to that level. And because you get that comfortable, it's past the honeymoon stage, and you reach that comfortability of like, man, I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing. And that's how you find yourself in a boring relationship. You have to continue to keep on the wheels spinning in that relationship, in those 3 P's, always striving for that excellence in the areas that people don't want to talk about.
Well, and you hit it on the head there, man, and then we can, wrap up pretty soon. But what you're talking about there, and I can attest to the fact, if you want to keep it a buck, dude, number one, we live where the divorce rate is at an all-time high, 73%. It's never been higher before. Number one, it stems from the unwillingness to have these type of conversations. But these are the problem sets that occur that drive to divorce, and people separate way before these conversations and approach is even had. So they don't even get to the point.
Which is crazy. You're married.
And that's what I'm talking about. And that's why we're talking about, if this was prior us, we need to bring this at the forefront sooner than later, because there will come a time where, more times than not, relationships end before they can even get to the real stuff that would have saved the relationship. Yeah. So if you can get this at the forefront and be open and have those conversations, as much uncomfortable as it is, which it is, I've been there, but you've never had the relational maturity until you get to that point. And that brings a whole, where love has been the concept, that brings a whole deeper amount of love,
intimacy,
and not to be corny, but that's the long lasting love that actually exists. Yeah. And it comes from these. So that's why you got to bring it to the forefront before you even get there, because these is what makes relationships tick.
Absolutely, man. I think that's all great advice. And thanks for, laying out your heart today, man. Again, this is just what we feel like we wish we knew as young, impressionable teenagers embarking on life. There's so many different things that we could have added to this conversation. Yeah. Outside of commenting Team J Honey, go ahead and comment what you feel like you wish we added to this conversation. Yeah, maybe we'll hit a part 2 or talk about it in another later episode. For sure. But as always, stay valued up. Stay valued up. It's been a real one. Absolutely love the conversation. Thanks for bringing what you did to the table, bro. And we got this, man. Hey, thanks for making your bed. I appreciate it. Episode 8. Set you up in life. Osho, tune in. Stay valued up.